got about a minute in there.
Yeah, we're expecting Scott to make it.
I don't know. See what time off gives you? You come in here with a smile on your face.
Yeah,
Here he
you get that
comes.
country music still.
Charlotte, did you get your paperwork that you wanted
Huh?
for the executive session?
My what? No. Thank you for reminding me.
It's because it's summertime. We're on summer break.
Thank you.
It's the only time in 4 years.
Oh, I was gonna say, gee, look at that pretty blue.
I almost did. I think you should. Yeah. And I'd like to be able to say a few things tonight too, just like that.
Yeah,
That's all I gotta say. Yeah, I know. I didn't yet. You could probably say something. You have to get it done.
We ready?
Yeah. Give a reason, a small reason.
Oh, it says 6:59. Can't start early. Are we live? Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
All right. I call the Norton City Council Special Council meeting to order for Thursday, July 11th, 2019. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent reflection. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Gaynor?
Here.
Mr. McClone?
Here.
Mr. Carratt?
Here.
Mr. Towsley?
Here.
Ms. Whipke?
Here.
Mr. Pelot?
Here.
Mr. Kernan?
Here. Under new business, an executive session to consider the purchase, transfer, or sale of property for public purposes as defined in ORC Section 121.22G2 and Section 3122 of the Norton City Charter. I make a motion to go into executive session.
I'll second.
So motion and a second to move into executive session. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Kernan?
Yes?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Towsley?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes. And I will invite Mr. Fowler, Mayor Zita, Mr. Messner, Mr. Markey. I will just let everyone know that the system will continue to record while we're in executive session, so if you don't want your conversations recorded, you may want to step outside. At this time, we will move into executive session.
You guys are having too good a time down there.
conference room.
Oh, really? Okay. It was always a little crowded back there.
It would be. Yeah.
We used to have it right back there. Oh, my God. Yeah. They are running the conference room, talking about, they want the public to hear what they're going to discuss. And really, it's a good thing. People think they're going to be secretive. But if it leaks out information, sometimes businesses will say, well, hey, everybody gets a jump on it. Well, that way, we vote for this, or we vote for that. Kind of starts, just do it in executive session. See, it should. It did.
The stenographer and step forward, please. For the second time, is there anyone? So that rule will be amended. We then have the amendment to Rule, Easter Rule 701, which we'll take that under consideration. Well, no, no, no. Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the ordinance? Come on up, give your name and address to the stenographer.
William Rice, 3906 Shelburne. The question is, whose idea was it to change the ordinance? Change the zoning?
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak?
Is there an answer to that?
Not from here. I mean, we can put together a response in writing
Why did this?
because I don't know.
Somebody had to know. That's what it says.
So I'm not going to sit here and argue. We will answer the question, but we'll do it the way we need to do it. Ms. Lee?
Lynn Lee, 3227 Creekside Drive, Norton. I just have a question. Councilman Pilar, you mentioned something about Mr. Jones' decision. Has he said something? I'm
else who wishes to speak against the ordinance? For the final time, is there anyone who wishes to speak against the said ordinance?
Gary, was that the last council meeting?
I'm doing my minutes.
Did anybody speak against it?
Committee of the whole?
Did anybody speak against it? Mhm. William Price, 3906 Shellhart. Kevin Kearns, 3732 Golf Course. Megan Williams, 3782 Golf Course. John Lombardi, 3660 Golf Course.
The change,
Oh, it's repeating me. Craig Rupon, 3816 Shellhart. Kevin Kearns, 3732 Golf Course. Christine Lombardi, 3660 Golf Course. Tim Burrows, 3836 Golf Course.
That was all for the sale of the golf course, right?
No, rezoning
Rezoning the golf course.
to mixed-use district.
Next year, did it pass?
No, it was a fourth reading, and it was the public hearing.
Oh,
So it hasn't passed, they haven't voted on it yet.
and they didn't table it, did they?
No, they did not table it either.
Yeah.
I think I got them all. You'll have to read the minutes when they come out. You have to wait for the movie to come out.
Yeah,
Oh, no, the movie's already on.
There's a lot of things on the burner for Norton, a lot of stuff. This one tonight's one of them. I hope it passed, it should, I mean, it's gotta be everything, it's gotta help. Has to help. If people want their taxes, not that, taxes aren't gonna go down, so at least it'll maybe put a ceiling on it for a while. Get some industry in there. That's what we gotta have. So this is an old, wore out council talking.
council rules, I had sent out some proposed changes to council rules, as opposed to having separate committee work sessions, that those would just take place during committee of the whole and regular council meetings. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to take a look at those. There was also one small change to Rule 701, which gets rid of a reference to mayor's court, which we don't have any longer. Is there any discussion regarding those changes to the rules? Mr. President? Yes, Mr. Towesley?
My concern is, and this is a perfect example in front of us. If we had council meetings every week, the rule to go 3 readings, make 2 or 3 weeks.
everything, yes.
What do they televise it on? I don't even, on what now?
We stream it to the city's website
Okay,
on Broadcast Norton. So if you go to the homepage,
right?
and if you scroll down below that big bar of pictures, you come to another bar that has icons. And one of them is Broadcast Norton. So if you click on that, that's a live stream what's happening right now. And then after the meeting, I download it from the live stream is what it's called, into an MP4 file and then upload it onto our website. On the left side, if you go to the website and you hover over council, then you get a list of things and you get to the meeting videos and hover over that, and then you can pull it up by year and then by date.
Wow, how neat.
And if you don't do it in that location on the website, you can scroll down further, get on the homepage to below the red bar, and there are several things that are there for quick reference. One of them is like our charter, our codified ordinances, and then meeting videos. So you can click on that too. So there's two different places you can access it after the event.
Okay,
But
good.
during the event, you want to be on the Broadcast Norton.
Okay, thank you, Jerry.
Sure. And if you want to stop in, I'll show you.
Okay, well, you're busy enough as it is, but
No, that's fine.
okay.
Obviously busy.
Never anybody feel like dancing, I'll tell you.
agenda back out here if I can find it.
Okay, we will enter back into the special council meeting for Thursday, July 11th, 2019. Committee of the Whole, letter A, Ms. Whipke.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're looking to move ordinance 90, 2019 to tonight's agenda, and also looking to waive the second and third readings. Can I go on and talk now or after we?
You can talk now.
Okay, as I think most of you are aware, we're looking to sell some property for a total of 34 acres to Clinton Aluminum Distribution for $469,800. That includes a CRA abatement. This is not written in stone. It's not concrete. Either side at this point could back out if the company's not happy. This is in no way saying this is a done deal. Any of the dollars that's coming from any of the acreage that's sold from that parkland will be applied to the bond. That's the first thing on our agenda. All those monies go to pay off that bond so we can get rid of it, which we won't see any money until the deal is finalized. Not really sure when that'll be, but the money probably won't be till next year. I think that's about all I've got to say. Anybody else? If
Yes,
not-
Mr. Towsley?
this has been brought before us, and we're calling a meeting on Thursday night. And on behalf of my residents who are very concerned, I want to make a motion to allow them to speak tonight to ease their concerns.
There's a motion to suspend the rules of council to allow public comment at the special meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules to allow public comment. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Ms. Whipke?
As much as I believe in the public speaking, I saw what happened at the Planning Commission and how it got out of hand and some of the things said. And this is a delicate situation. I would not want to see us put that in any way to put this at risk by allowing public speaking tonight.
Any further discussion?
I would just remind people that this is an agreement, enter into an agreement for the sale of the property, nothing more.
I'm also in agreement with Ms. Whipke about the sensitivity of it, and I think the integrity of the group up here needs to be somewhat supported or supportive of our residents. I also have a project in my own ward that we may be visiting. And their well-being of their properties, I think, is an issue for them. There's not a big crowd here, and I don't think we have to necessarily divulge any secret information, but it doesn't hurt to let them speak.
Mr. Markey?
Just a comment. I think I speak for the administration. I appreciate, probably at my behest, the sensitivity that you guys are applying to the situation. I think we're always in support of, although it doesn't make it accused otherwise, of public comment. I think we're okay. I mean, if we can allow comment, and I don't think it's going to cause a problem. May not have a lot of answers for the questions that are being asked, but I always think it's appropriate to let people comment before you vote. So.
I think people pretty much know where I generally stand on public comment. I mean, even though it's not generally a part of a special council meeting, I didn't feel like I could just add it because it's not what the council rules say, but there is a motion pending to allow public comment. It's been seconded. I don't see any harm whatsoever in letting residents speak. I mean, this is their forum. So, any other discussion? Would the clerk call the roll, please, on the motion?
Mr. Towsley?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Peel? Ms. Whipke?
For the first time in my entire life, I'm saying no on this subject.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan.
Yes, public will be allowed to comment. What I'll say is, let's go ahead and get these moved into new legislation, and then before we do the introduction of legislation, then we'll allow for public comment. It'll be under the same rules as normal. It'll be 5 minutes, and we'll do that. We'll add that in before introduction of new legislation. So we were talking about letter A. Is there any further discussion regarding that? I think we need a motion to add that to tonight's agenda.
I motion to add ordinance number 90, 2019 to tonight's agenda for first reading.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to add ordinance number 90, 2019 to tonight's agenda for its first reading. Is there any further discussion? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan.
Yes. Letter B, Mr. Gaynor.
Excuse me, before you go ahead, aren't you
Uh-huh.
going to waive second and third?
Well, we just moved it into
tonight's agenda.
to the
Okay.
agenda. We'll do it under introduction to new
Are you
legislation.
doing the same thing to B then?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'd like to also make a motion to move 91, 2019 to tonight's agenda.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second to move ordinance number 91, 2019 to tonight's agenda for first reading. Is there any discussion regarding that motion?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd just like to clarify that this is amending our current legislation in order to require council has approval of all those site plans as well as the planning committee.
And just to clarify, Mr. Kernan, if I could.
Yes.
So this is for the MUD. One of
Right.
the things, we read that for the fourth time on Monday. We said we were not going to move it forward at this time to rezone the property, the golf course property. This allows for the same process that's being used in the C1 district, where all site plans go to Plan Commission and Council for approval under specific guidelines. So to help provide some more control over concerns that inappropriate development would occur there.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan.
Yes. All right. We do not have a sign-in sheet. Do you have one handy that you could just?
I was thinking maybe we give it a read, and then if they want to get up and speak against that particular ordinance.
I think we'll just do it as communications from the public. I think that's what the.
Okay.
So when you come up to speak, just raise your hand, but when you come up, if you'll just sign in on the sheet, and then you'll have 5 minutes, normal process. Anyone wish to give communications from the public? Ms. Vanderveen?
Tanya Vanderveen. I don't know that I can write and speak at the same time.
I won't start your time until you're done writing. How's that?
That's perfect. Okay. So, we've had lots of discussions about this property, a lot, starting on March 12th. You guys have given lots of insight, lots of good advice. Things that I've taken away from those conversations have been that when it came time to do what you want to do this evening, that an important factor were the deed restrictions, which is what we're asking for. And I'll say it again on the record, that we are in no way opposed to the prosperity coming to Norton. What we don't want is somebody between 25 and 100 feet behind our property line. Clinton Aluminum runs 24 hours a day. They have semis, forklifts, trucks, lights, lots of beeping. Nobody should have to live with that in their backyard. I realize that there are not a ton of residents that surround the perimeter of the square, Eastern, Fairland, Union, Cleveland, Massillon. It is a small group of us. But these are our homes, this is where we live, and it's just the right thing to do. Mr. Casey submitted 5 weeks ago a proposed amendment to the I-Light industry current zoning code law, whatever you want to call it. he submitted it with the exact same language that is currently on the books, with the only change being what the footage was, and yet none of you have addressed it. You tell me that legal's looking at it. I appreciate that Mr. Markey needs to look at it and make sure that it's okay. But it literally reads word for word of what is currently on the books, with the only thing being changed is the number. From where I'm standing and from my perspective, I feel like that's deliberately not being addressed, and now you're going to enter into an agreement to sell this property, and perhaps you have those deed restrictions, and I just want to know that you're doing what you said you would do. What you posted on your website in terms of the ordinance has no information. It doesn't say where on the property it is, although I did email Council President, and he did inform me what it was. I've had conversations with Mr. Fowler. Michael and I have. We knew that it was going to be the corner on Eastern and Fairland that was developed first because it's got the water there. I get that, but there are people that live there. So that's my question. I just want to know that if you're going to enter into the agreement to sell 34 acres to Clinton Aluminum, what are you putting in place to protect those of us that live around this piece of property? You had your council meeting on Monday, and you were supposed to go on break. And then 24 hours ago, you posted that you're having a special meeting. Most people didn't pay attention to that, and there's very few people here tonight to speak against it. But I'm not the only person that lives in this square that is upset about this. And we just want to know that you're going to protect what we've asked, which is boundaries, setbacks, mounds, shrubs, so that we do not have to contend with lights, beeping, tractor trailers, dirt, dust. What are the deed restrictions? So that's why I wanted to come tonight. That's why I asked to speak. Thank you, Mr. Towsley, for making a motion to allow that to happen. I'm not trying to screw up any deal that the city has with Norton. I don't even know anybody from Clinton Aluminum. Don't really care about people from Clinton Aluminum. I just want to know that as you start this process, you're going to do what you said you were going to do.
In case we did not make it clear, this is not a done deal. This is just allowing us to keep on moving forward. And as Mr. Towsley stated, we are still looking out for your interest as well.
But that's not what the ordinance says. The ordinance says that it's allowing council, it's allowing basically the administration to move forward with the sale of this property.
And there's a lot of ins and outs that have to be
They
answered.
have the authority to enter in to sell 34 acres to Clinton Aluminum without us knowing what's in that sales agreement. What are the deed restrictions? What is being put in place to protect the residents?
When this comes back to us and they say that they want to accept this or something, and it has to come back, it just isn't, this isn't finished, then that's when those things will be addressed at that time, if not just before then.
So what you're stating very clearly right now on the record is that the ordinance that is put forth tonight is solely for the purpose to give Mr. Fowler, Mr. Zita, and Mr. Markey the authority to see if they can come to a sales agreement. And if one is reached before anything is signed, that has to come back before council to be approved. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Am I getting this wrong or
No,
right?
it's okay. So the purchase and sale, what I think to clarify, the purchase and sale agreement is an agreement on terms to sell property. You're right. The council ordinance does give authority to actually sell the property. In order to, what I think Ms. Whipke's meaning is when you develop the property, as opposed to just buying the property, when you actually go to develop, those actions to develop the property, that's what goes before planning commission. That's what has to come back before council. There's as was mentioned, the CRA that's going to come back before council. So there's other things that are going to come back before council and planning commission.
The site plans.
Right.
In short.
The site plans and.
Correct?
That's correct. It's the site
So
plans.
that's not what I'm talking about, though, for tonight. What you all have stated to me time and time again is that those deed restrictions have to be a part of the sales agreement. And I'm asking you if they are.
I don't, okay, I'm not going to comment.
I mean, there aren't any deeds pending at this point,
Right.
so.
That's correct.
So again, you're looking
So-
to authorize the administration to sell 34 acres of this property to Clinton Aluminum without any provisions. So basically, they can buy the property, You can enter into the agreement to sell the 34 acres, and yes, the site plan has to come back with what they're going to do in terms of their building, but at that point, they own the property. And there's nothing that you can do at that point because they're the owners of the property.
The site plans still have to go through everything. We can still require them, like we were discussing, the mounding, things like that. Trust me, we are very, very aware of your situation.
But what if they buy the property and they don't agree with those things? What if they put forth a site plan and they don't like the mounds and the shrubbery and having to lay concrete so that there aren't dirt roads and dust flying all over the place? Now I'm kind of mad because we've had lots of discussions about this on the record and privately after meetings, and what I've taken away from those conversations is the deed restrictions needed to be in the sale of the land. That is exactly what was said. And I would encourage you to pull tapes from prior meetings.
I mean, I think I think legally that's one way you could do it, but you could also do it through the site plan process. I'm guessing. There's a number of ways you can do it.
Agreements, site plan
Yeah.
process. There's other ways you can do it. So.
Well, it's very disheartening because I feel like I've been told one thing and now being told another. I'm hearing Ms. Whipke say clearly it's not a done deal, anybody could back out. It's such BS. And excuse me going down that road because I absolutely 150% believe that you all knew, maybe not you council members, but I absolutely believe that this has been in the works with Clinton Aluminum for some time, and that this was the intent, and that is why this is moving along. And I'm frustrated because the ask of the amendment to the ordinance of light industry simply to change the footage to protect residents is a reasonable request. 25 and 100 feet is not reasonable, and you all have done nothing with what was put forth. And now it's been rezoned to light industry. You're going to sell 34 acres to Clinton Aluminum, and the light zoning code still says 25 and 100 feet. So I'm very frustrated with all of you for not addressing that.
I'll address it. That ordinance would have been instigated over against all I-1 property and districts within the city.
Correct.
All of them would not even have the capability of being 200 foot away from a residential, and then they would need to come forward for the variances. So and we're not required to put something to take in and look at something just because a citizen
You're right, but you do
suggests
have a
doing it.
responsibility to say, we can't do that for the reason that you just said, and yet that's not been said.
Well, it has now.
It sure has.
Anyone else wish to speak? Mr. Stack?
All right, Michael Stack, 3004 Union Street. Thanks for allowing me to speak this evening. And it was said that we would put a deed agreement on because I believe it was said that we couldn't change I-1 throughout the district, so we thought that the best way to do it was to put a deed restriction on that property so that we could meet our standards. But, you know, here again, I was here. That was residential. You're bringing industry to me. You have to protect me and the other residents around there. I didn't come into an industrial area and say, you know, make them tear their building down and move it. You're bringing it to me. I have a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in my property. I built that house. I can't imagine, and I don't think anybody up there could, a business running 24/7 out your back door 25 feet from your boundary line or 100 feet from your property line. There's no way. And I think that's why I stated this all along. You know, what hours of operation are you guys going to allow these people to run? You know, what am I going to see, what I'm going to hear, what am I going to taste? You know, and here we are. We have no deed restrictions, and you're not saying if you have any setbacks, any boundaries, any legal times of operation. Imagine trying to be out on your back deck on a Sunday afternoon, evening with your family, and all you hear is backup alarms from trucks, semi-trucks going down, machines stamping metal. So I think that's about all I have to say. Ms. Vanderveen covered pretty much everything else. I just wanted to, please, deed restrictions.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Mowry.
Good evening, council. Bill Mowry, 2106 Warren Avenue, Norton, Ohio. I happen to live in a light industrial area, and I live in a non-conforming use. I've got Lenger's Lumberjacks, I've got Carter Lumber, I've got Hugo Mole, I've got really good businesses that have taken care of their properties, and I have no problem with them whatsoever. Norton does need to move forward, and I know a hardship it does cause for some people, but I mean, I think Joe and a few other were on council when CVS came to town, and we allowed them to purchase the property. We also allowed them a site plan, and they did everything they promised to do. Trees, shrubbery, protection of the neighborhood. I don't think we can think anything less of these people that when they buy the property, they'll want to be a part of the community and do just that. ABC Plumbing also moved in up here at the corner of Trotter and Cleveland Madison Road. They've been good neighbors as far as I'm concerned. I had a lot of questions when they first moved in, but I really have never heard any complaints since then. That's about what I have on that, but I'd like to also say too, you know, I take offense to anyone that would say anything against our council president right now. I'd like to see you all stick together. I think you're doing a great job. I hope you all get reelected to your seats. I'd like to also commend Mr. Zeta. Every council thing I've ever went to, Lincoln Day dinners, he's always been there. Everyone's always spoke highly of him and the city of Norton, how they're moving ahead. I thank you for what you've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mowry. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. Okay, introduction of new legislation. Ordinance number 90, 2019. Ms. Whipke?
I introduce ordinance 90, 2019 for its first reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the administrative officer to execute and deliver a real estate purchase and sale agreement and declaring an emergency.
I motion to waive the second and third readings on ordinance 90, 2019.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to waive the second and third readings on ordinance number 90, 2019. Is there any discussion regarding the waiver only at this point?
Yes, Mr.
Mr.
President.
Tousley?
I just have to state the way I feel. I wouldn't do business this way personally in my personal life this quickly, and I don't feel right moving this forward without it being aired to the public more. So I'm not against the bringing the company in, but a company should know that we're a municipality and we have rules, and we should be able to work around that.
Any other comments regarding waiver? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Tousley?
No.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
I motion to adopt ordinance 90, 2019.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 90, 2019. Is there any further discussion regarding adoption? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Tousley?
No.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes. Ordinance number 91, 2019. Mr. Gaynor.
Yes, I'd like to offer ordinance 91, 2019 for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to initiate an amendment in the zoning code of the city by amending section 1287.04.
I'd like to ask to waive the second and third readings and vote.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to waive the second and third readings of ordinance number 91, 2019. Is there any discussion regarding waiver?
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr.
For the-
Towesley?
For the same reason on the first one, I just would like to know what's the hurry on this particular. I don't think anybody would be opposed to it, but I'm just wondering what's the hurry on this?
From my point of view, the hurry is that we want this piece of legislation to go down to the Planning Commission and come back up so that we can vote on this and the final approval of the MUD district at the same time, so that we have the authority to be able to approve or not approve final site plans for the MUD. So I think it's just a timing. We're just trying to get it down to Planning Commission while we're on break so they can do their job.
Okay, well, can someone do me a favor and could someone just read it to me real quick? That would satisfy me.
I didn't bring it.
This is also what the public has asked for, Paul. They've asked for us to have the control over what goes in when the MUD is implemented. It's gonna be in here. And this is giving us the authority to have that control over it.
It
I'm not going
requires,
to pass something I haven't even heard yet, so if someone could read it.
Exhibit A says, Section 1287.04, Site Plan Review. Site plan review for all development in a mixed-use development district shall be required in accordance with the procedures set forth in Sections 1279.15 and 1279.16 of the codified ordinances. And those particular sections refer back to the requirement that is in place for C1 districts, which requires any site plan to be approved by council.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
No problem. Did I get that right, Mr. Mark?
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
There's a number of approvals in there, including
Right.
Plan Commission like standard, but there's a whole series of requirements for site plan approval in those sections that are more robust than our current code.
Okay. Is there any further discussion regarding waiver? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve.
Second that.
There's a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 91, 2019. Is there any further discussion regarding the ordinance? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke? Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes. There is no prior legislation. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned.